All right, what's up, guys? You know who it is. It's your boy Wes, and we got another installment of the Foolin Around Podcast series that I basically just started a couple weeks ago. And today we have my friend Tawn here. Um, and I'll say we switched it around a little bit, the format. Normally, I think I normally try to get it where we're both running or we're both walking. But of course, in these times of COVID, we gotta uh, do what works and do what's comfortable for everyone. So this is what we got here. So let's go ahead and start with the first question. Ton, how do you know me?
Hi, everyone. Tawn Kennedy here. Wes, I met you, must have been around 2010.
Yes.
And I don't remember if you had already been involved with People Power, or was it Mimi who connected us? Because anyway, so I worked for 9 years with an organization called People Power, running a youth bike program. In like my first year or first couple months, I helped with a bike ride to Monterey, and you were part of that. And for folks who don't know, Monterey's about 50 miles from Santa Cruz as the bike rides. And we had a group of like 12 youth and like 5 or 6 adults. And we went and rode down all in a day to Monterey, or Pacific Grove more specifically, and stayed at a hostel down there. Not a hostel environment, but a youth hostel. And I don't know. For me, that was the furthest I had ridden my bike. When I first did that, and I know it was pretty transformative for a lot of the youth. Yeah. What I'm curious. I mean, you came back some years and like you rode part way with us and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember you had that folding bike.
Oh, I still have that folding bike.
You do?
Yeah. No, I definitely replaced the pedal that I think I took from Steve.
Yeah.
If people don't know, on that actual bike ride, like Tom says, I have a folding bike, but I also have folding pedals. Well, no, I used to have folding pedals, and I guess those pedals really aren't made for a 50-mile trek. So probably once we got into Moss Landing, one of the pedals just straight off broke off, and I was like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to finish the ride. And for some reason, Steve had an extra pedal in his bag.
Yeah.
And I think I used that for a while, and then at some point the folding mechanism on the bike actually broke when I was going to school one day. But because I was still on the warranty, I could send the bike in, and then they basically just sent me a new bike. And
what?
That's.
But you still ended up swapping out the folding pedals on your new bike.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna keep the stock pedals.
Yeah,
I was basically done with that experiment right there.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure, as Tawn said, I've pretty much kind of hung around. I'll go on the group rides, and if you have those volunteer opportunities,
and then randomly we reconnected. I guess it was like a year and a half ago, because you were interning at what's the physical therapy place, or were you staff there?
You're talking about Precision?
Yeah, Precision.
Oh yes. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
No, I was working there for 2.5 years, and then basically once I got into PT school, then that was
nice.
That was my end with them.
So the reason I was going to physical therapy was actually from a fall I had. Excuse me. While I was leading a group of youth, we'd gone mountain biking, and I was on a bike that I was unfamiliar with, and the handlebars are extra wide, as many of the modern mountain bike handlebars are. And I clipped a sign, or like a signpost, and went down pretty hard and messed up my shoulder. And so anyway, that's what led me to physical therapy. So there are inherent dangers to the biking reality.
Yes.
Which many of them can be mitigated, but anyway, that's part of what I do as well.
Yeah. So on that note, can you tell everyone what's your current job and prior experience?
Yeah, good segue. So as I mentioned, I worked for the better part of a decade with People Power, which then became Bike Santa Cruz County, running youth programs, and that was primarily working with high school students and recent graduates, such as yourself, all over Santa Cruz County. And we did everything from group bike rides and the Monterey trip to an Earn a Bike program, working with middle school students to help them get bikes, because often, middle school is when kids kind of start to hone in on like what's cool and what's not cool. And, we tried to create a supportive space for kids, both to get bikes who may not have had access to bikes, and then also to learn some basic bike repair skills and stuff like that. So did that for 9 years. And then a year and a little bit ago, I had an opportunity to work with another local nonprofit called Ecology Action. And I work there with their sustainable transportation programs, specifically or primarily working with adults and doing kind of similar stuff. We do a lot of presentations to UCSE affiliates, so students, faculty, staff, and then also working with local businesses around the county. And then we have a pretty cool program where we offer zero interest bike loans and now e-bike loans. And we're going to be starting to offer e-bike test rides. So, you can go to most bike shops and test ride a bike that you're interested in purchasing. But usually those test rides are a couple hours, maybe a whole day, if you're lucky. So we wanted to create an opportunity for people to try bikes out for a week or for 2 weeks. And so in 2021, we're going to be rolling that out for our business members. And I'm really excited about that because e-bikes have just been a huge game changer. And in our field, it really seems like they're just a massive way to get people on bikes who, might be intimidated by hills or by distance, or, they love to commute to work, but they don't want to arrive to work like sweaty and disheveled. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm particularly excited about. So it's all about sustainable transportation. Some of it's about letting people have guaranteed rides home if they, on any given day, they take the bus, they bike, they carpool, they use some other mode of transportation, and driving alone, they have a way they can get home in the case of an emergency. Not something I had thought about a ton, but I think it is a big barrier for people. What happens if I need to get home, I need to pick up my kid from daycare or whatever, and I get a flat tire? I'm not going to ride my bike. So trying to eliminate some of those types of barriers to riding. But in general, super fun, super rewarding work. I also get to do I just wrote an article about transportation justice, which I love working with adults. And, we got to work with downtown employees in downtown Santa Cruz, doing a lot of presentations and stuff like that, getting out free bus passes to people. And then COVID hit. And so everything went virtual. So we had to figure out that whole thing. But one of the things I miss about this new position is a little bit more of the direct contact, and particularly working with youth and working in communities that don't typically or historically get the same amount of resource. So, Santa Cruz, North County, or Santa Cruz, Capitola, Scotts Valley, all tend to have a lot of resource in general, not everybody, but, it's more resourced, let's say, than like Watsonville. So, with our Earn a Bike program, we started in Watsonville. And it's just like, you talk to kids down there and they're like, yeah, there's nothing to do. And whether or not that's true, that, that is a common feeling, and that is a sense that people have. And so providing more opportunities for entertaining stuff to do, students can do or youth can do on their own. And then also, giving youth access to this incredible tool of a bicycle, and then some of the skills to be able to use it for their whole lives, or hopefully through their adolescence at least. And then over time, 9 years is a pretty long time to get to work with something like that. Seeing how that carries into people's, when we start working with them in their school, seeing what happens in high school, maybe they get super into BMXs, or there was a time when fixies were super popular. Now it's those 24-inch, 26-inch BMX bikes that everybody likes to pop wheelies on. So, seeing how youth grab onto that, and for some people, it's just become like something they feel like they can do their whole lives, or at least I think so. Most of them are still pretty young, but
Nice.
Something accessible, something fun, something healthy, a way to help the environment, in a way to connect to community too, especially during COVID. It's been, for so many folks, such an isolating time. Going out for a bike ride can just be the perfect balm. I know for myself, I've been in Santa Cruz a long time, and I'll always run into somebody I know if I'm out for a bike ride. So, and you can mostly maintain social distance, good kind of pandemic safety protocol on a bike ride. So unless it's super crowded or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So I'll say to kind of segue and kind of for us to dig into a little bit of the more nitty gritty, can you go ahead and give me a cause or issue that you feel like is important, but you don't feel like it's really getting the necessary attention that it might deserve?
Yeah. So I just wrote this article for our organization about some of my reflections on transportation justice. And, words like justice and equity and the like get tossed around a lot. And for me, it just means that all communities, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of race, ethnicity, any of those factors, should have the same access to, safe, healthy, forms of transportation and that allow them to reach jobs, recreation. I'm at the beach, right? Ways for people to connect to nature, and resources like doctors' offices and so much like that. And as I'm sure folks know, like that's not usually the case if you're looking at either lower income folks or folks from historically disadvantaged communities. So I can share my link to my article, but basically it was powerful to kind of look back at some stuff I'd read a while ago or been paying attention to during the pandemic, because as folks know, like things kind of went crazy there for a while, in the sense of all of a sudden, all the commuters just basically stopped going to work, or all the people who could work from home were working from home, and transportation trips went way down. Now, of course, that's not true for everybody. There's plenty of folks who have to drive for to get from point A to point B, and there's plenty of folks who don't have access to automobiles, and so they're using public transportation, or they choose not to own a car, and so they're using public transportation. So just starting to think about that a little bit and how that intersects with racism in the United States, and the way that many communities have been historically not just like not allowed access to equitable transportation options, but the way that transportation and freeways in particular and highways have been used to actually disrupt many communities. There's a historically Black business district in West Oakland in the 50s, I believe, that was demolished for one of the many freeways around Oakland to be put in. And there's countless examples of communities where freeways and highways and expressways and things like that were used to disrupt like the economic integrity and vitality and cultural integrity and vitality of communities, immigrant communities, communities of color, low income communities. So, we're also seeing how the pandemic has created these contradictions. There's a urban planner based out of Southern California, Tamika Butler, and they focus a lot on this. Like there's all these great amenities that are popping up, like parklets and outdoor spaces for people to eat during the pandemic, and extended sidewalks and slow streets and stuff like that. And then at the same time, you look around, there's also a pandemic of unemployment. There's also the like historical racism and the Black Lives Matter movement and people marching in the street. So who's allowed to use these public spaces? Are homeless people in their tents, on a street somehow less valid than like businesses with tents outside? So anyway, I don't have the answers, but I think it's important to look at, equitable access and how we can address the historical underinvestment and disinvestment and destruction of communities, especially by transportation projects. And transportation is everything, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to get to a beautiful place, being able to get to work, good employment. There have been all these studies that have shown for a lot of people, it's a car that makes a difference for them in terms of their economic upward mobility. And then other studies have looked at, well, maybe it's not so much a car as it is like ability to transport oneself. So that could be a great public transportation system. That could be a great network of protected bike lanes. That could be, sidewalks and freeway overcrossings and things, so you don't have to go. You're in SoCal, right?
No, I'm actually in Santa Cruz.
Oh, you're in Santa Cruz, but you went to SoCal High, so
Yeah.
you're familiar with like SoCal Drive and that corridor.
Mhm.
And less than a mile from SoCal Drive is the other side of Highway 1, but the actual ways to cross the highway, which is a freeway there, are pretty limited and can be pretty sketchy. And so, there's actually this big, recently unveiled grant. I think it's the largest grant that the county has received, $107 million, and it will include 5 miles of protected bike lanes on SoCal Drive and 2 new bike and pedestrian overcrossings for Highway 1. And so, there are things that can be done. They don't all have to be $107 million massive infrastructure programs, but there are things we can do to address the historical disruption of these communities. And there's many activists and folks around the world who are working on that stuff. So, I have so much more to learn. I'm going to keep writing articles, or helping to write articles in this series on transportation justice, because I think it's so important, and so important for us to think about, especially as now we have a little bit of like this opportunity to think more critically. Like, so what happens after the pandemic? Like, if people aren't commuting as much, what happens to cities and downtowns and these spaces, that were often historically abandoned, right?
Mhm.
When the suburbs became so popular, or parts of them were abandoned. And now, the communities of color who were underinvested in, and low-income communities, now are being forced out because of gentrification. But what do the dynamics look like when people aren't commuting as much? Who wants to commute, 45 minutes, an hour and a half each way to a desk job, when now we have much of the groundwork for people to work from home? So I don't know. I think it's going to be a really interesting time, and I hope we can talk to each other and try and find some solutions that work for everybody. So
No, thanks very much for sharing that. I feel like you brought up a lot of points that I think myself I didn't previously really consider. So definitely later I'll be checking out your article, and I'll definitely find a way to put that link down the bottom. But
Thanks,
real
Wes.
quick, I'll say on a more cheery, maybe funny note. But before I ask the next question, I just wanted to note, because you brought up that that there's that new grant for the protected lanes down on SoCal Drive, and then possibly some new pedestrian bridges over Highway 1. And I just wanted to note that there's only been 2 times that I've been, one hit by a car and one almost hit by a car, and they're all on SoCal Drive.
This is your cheery note?
Yeah, I thought it'd be a little more funnier to add that.
Yeah, unfortunately not that funny, because of course, I don't know what happened to you. I'm curious what the context was.
No, actually, no. I was more or less fine each time. The one where I almost got hit, it was I think I was riding back from Cabrillo. Actually, both of these I was riding from Cabrillo back home. And if people don't know, Cabrillo College is the local community college that we have here in Santa Cruz. But I think one of them, it was right before I hit, you're going down SoCal, and then right before you go through SoCal Village, there's basically a huge hill that you just go down. And I was going down that hill, and there was a car trying to turn left into a street. And for some reason, I don't know why, she waited basically right when I was at that intersection to turn left. So I was able to turn and just narrowly avoid hitting her. And for some reason I didn't fall, but I was definitely very pissed at that. But the other time,
that's a classic, Wes. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a classic way that accidents happen, and I'm glad you were okay. But often drivers misjudge the speed of cyclists, and so they're like, "Oh, I got plenty of time." They don't think they're moving as fast as they actually are moving. We see it a lot with e-bikes too. People don't expect e-bikes to be moving at such a fast clip, and so they cut them off or things like that. So you're not alone.
No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No, the other time that I actually got hit was actually no, I didn't get hit. I biked into the car. Was near Dominican Hospital. They have those lanes that say you have to keep them open so the ambulances can go in. But basically same situation. I was in the bike lane. But the cars that were on the same side of the road as me, it was completely there's a ton of traffic. But basically there was a green light in front of me. I was trying to make it, and a car was making a left turn, and because there was traffic, they couldn't see that
Right.
I was in the bike lane, and I didn't know there was a car turning until it was basically right in front of me. So I just kind of smacked into the side of a minivan. Luckily I had a helmet on. So no injuries, but my front tire was just slightly bent. So I just, I'm pretty sure I took it to the bike church to get it realigned. But considering how fast I was going, I was happy that I didn't really have any lasting injuries from that.
Yeah, that's actually similar to what the only time that I got hit was actually running into a car that turned suddenly in front of me that I couldn't see until the last second. And so that's also a pretty common one, especially when traffic is stopped and you're like, oh, this is great. I get to go as fast as I want. And here are all these cars queued up. Haha, suckers.
Yep.
And then there's a gap in traffic and someone sees it and takes it to turn left from the oncoming lane. And then, they run into you or you run into them. So glad we're both okay.
Yep. Good. Moving on, kind of keeping within the same idea of causes and issues, but is there one that you feel is a little more close to heart that you'd like more people to know about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I just think this can be such an isolating time. I don't know like numbers. I just saw an Instagram post from an activist group that I follow, talking about like levels of domestic violence and child abuse and things like that during COVID. And I guess I just, it's a good time to reach out. Like, it's a good time to help people feel not so alone. And we're all kind of doing our best and getting by as best as we can. But it's just, as people say, it's unprecedented. It's a big blow to our sense of like who we are. And, so many people have had to move back home, and not just like folks in their 20s, but folks in their 50s are moving in with their parents. And if they can, they're lucky enough to be able to do that. So it's just a really good time to find ways to reach out and give back. And, it definitely makes you think about like the most vulnerable folks in our communities, which are kids and people who are either just on the edge of, having housing or having employment or having access to resources, or are already, houseless or homeless and just kind of trying to make their way. I know that a lot of social services and stuff really were impacted by COVID. And so there's maybe less support available. So I don't know, it's different for everybody, and everyone has to decide what works for them and what's safe and what feels good, but finding ways to give back, because I do think that not only does it help the issues, but it can also help us, as we're searching for meaning and identity, when so many of the ways that we find meaning and identity, community, hanging out with friends, jobs, have maybe shifted or, completely disappeared. So, I'm just spitballing, but some things that I think are important.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely very important. But I'll say to go ahead and wrap things up, to end it, can you go ahead and give me kind of what your current goals are, either immediate or for the year or till you die?
Well, prior to COVID, I'd never done a lot of international travel. I've done some. I've definitely gone overseas and stuff, but my wife and I were looking at going to Italy this past summer. Oh wow, this is a giant, adorable cat. I also want to pet more cats.
Yes.
I want to feel safe to pet cats again, Wes.
Yeah.
They were like talking about how you shouldn't pet cats. And hi, buddy. You want to be on the Zoom call? You're massive. Look at this thing. Oh my gosh. So I hope international travel can open back up for me and for us. We're looking at going to Italy, and then my wife looked on the State Department website, and there was the first 14 cases of COVID in Italy, and we're like, oh, maybe not going to press purchase on those airplane tickets. And that was right prior to when everybody went into lockdown, or most folks went into lockdown in California. So I know some people are doing it anyway. If you can stay safe, if you can keep your loved ones safe, more power to you. But we're taking it real careful. So I look forward to more adventures further afield. I've been trying to make art every day. My background is both my parents are artists, and there have been periods of time where, it's been months between, picking up a pen or paintbrush or pencil and drawing. And during October, things were just really stressful with work and life and everything. And I found it really helpful. I've started following an Instagram thing called Inktober, trying to make art every day. And I just found it to be really therapeutic, which you can, if folks want, I'll share my Instagram. Folks want to check that stuff out.
I'll put all the links you want me to put down below. All right.
Sweet. So yeah, at least for January, trying to do sketches, trying to make art, trying to just do something every day. And just trying to stay healthy and balanced and stay active, go for bike rides. I'm working from home, so it can be a little bit challenging to make time for self-care, which turns out a lot of my bike riding was just connected to me biking to and from work. So having to make conscious time for those kinds of things. My wife and I have been dancing. We just started watching some choreography, like simple choreography being taught online. That's pretty nice during these short days. So I don't know about like long-term goals right now. I'm happy to be employed. I'm happy to get to do the work that I'm doing. And I just, want to support myself and my loved ones staying happy and healthy and balanced. So those are the main things.
No, all good. No, thanks for letting me interview you for this. I think I was when I was interviewing one of my friends yesterday, I brought up this point that I thought of again, because I feel like I do consider you one of my good friends, but one of those friends that I tend to, like you said, kind of see in passing every once in a while, either if it's at the physical therapy clinic or if it's like at a ride or one of the volunteer opportunities that you email me with. And I'm kind of happy through kind of like how you have your art creative outlet. I kind of have this new creative outlet that I'm using that I can now to kind of reconnect to those people who I feel like because I feel like me and you, we, like you said, I guess we've known each other for about 10 years now, but
that's amazing. Totally.
But this has definitely been a nice conversation to have, and I really can't wait to have other people
I'm super
learn
excited.
from this.
I definitely want to check out your other conversations and stuff. I think this is really inspiring. So thanks for reaching out.
No, thank you. So I'll go ahead and end it. Just say thank you to the people.